Well, hi everybody. I'm back with Tracy Hanson, and we've been talking about the power of one's story, particularly when their story is threaded through with Jesus. You mentioned last time a little bit about your own story and being able to tell your story. I think probably part of your being able to do that was recognizing the power of some of the stories that you've heard. For instance, biblical stories. Who's someone maybe in Scripture whose story you read and say, wow, that captures my attention and really grips my heart?
You know, when I think of the Old Testament, I think of the story of Hannah. And here she was one of two wives, and she was childless. And so she had a lot of shame on her life in that culture because she couldn't bear children for her husband, and the other wife was bearing children, and just this torment that she was just carrying around, this burden of shame and contempt for herself, for her husband, and for the other wife. And that she took that burden to the Lord, and she just cried on the altar. And really, she was actually confused, as if she was drunk during that time.
Right.
And but here is a woman who just bore her soul to the Lord, and said, you know, whatever you want of me, Lord, I will do. I will be obedient. And the Lord blessed her with a child, and then she turned around and gave that child back to the Lord. And I've had this, it's just fascinating. And I don't know, as I have entered my brokenness and really just laid that out before the Lord, that He has met me time and time again as I've gone through my story and putting words to that.
Wow. And you've told your story, and you've relayed Scripture as you've told story and talked to people about things. What kind of response do you get? When people listen, do they come and say, wow, this helps me in this way? What do they respond?
You know, women are relational, and a lot of my opportunities to tell my story have been with women. And I think they come to me and they're like, thank you for being so vulnerable. And they're encouraged to maybe start looking at their own story. Or I had a lady say, you know, what if somebody wanted to start talking about their story? And she's talking about herself. And so it's as I share my story with people, and I'm transparent and real with them, I think it's giving them an encouragement to, like, oh, I have a story too, and maybe it's okay that I talk about that I've been hiding from for 20 years or 50 years. I mean, I've seen ladies in their 80s start talking about their story, and what a priceless, precious gift that is for them.
Wow. We had a conversation among several of us earlier today about this, telling the story, not just for women, but for men as well, and we kind of came to this recognition that, you know, in a time when in the Christian culture, a lot of times we have accountability groups, as healthy maybe vulnerability groups, where we take turns telling that story, because for as much as it maybe helps us come out with who we are, it allows others to know who we are.
Right.
And there's pretty significant power in that, is there not?
Yes, and I've learned over the last few years that where there's vulnerability, there's connectedness. Where there's connectedness, there's vulnerability. And we are made to be connected with each other. And it doesn't have to be hundreds of people. It may just be 1, 2, 3 people, but we need some safe people in our life to be able to be totally vulnerable with, where there's just absolute love and care and kindness offered in that space.
Wow, that's significant. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit more about story when we sit down together one more time.
Okay.